Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is June 22nd, and we have today the first part of a two-part article about something really delicious.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let you go ahead because I have my own opinions here.
Well, okay, I actually agree because I don't eat sweets, but on the other hand, it does taste really good.
They do. Okay, so we're talking about the wonderful world of egg tarts, and they're all right, I guess. I'm just going to say that. I have nothing against egg tarts. In fact, I think they're delicious, but I've never had a big craving for egg tarts. To me, when I first came to Asia in 2005, one of the things that really stuck out to me is, man, people really like egg tarts here.
Right.
That's like one of the things that I noticed right away. Like, why is like KFC pushing egg tarts so hard?
But it's a special kind of egg tart. Taiwan had mostly only a different kind of egg tart before then, which was just not as appealing. It was not as good.
That's funny. As we read this article, we're going to learn some things that I had no idea were true. In fact, this is giving an all-new perspective on a food that I didn't think was all that special at all.
Yeah.
And this is not to be negative about egg tarts or the story in general, to be clear. Because again, yeah, they're good, but I didn't really know that they were such a big thing. So this is news to me, and it's pleasantly surprising. Like, I'm happy that people really enjoy these. It's just maybe something I'd never considered, maybe?
Why is it such a big deal? Well, we can talk about it a little later because I was in Taiwan at the time that everybody went absolutely crazy for them. So we can talk a little more about that later. All right, so we can see from the title, we're going to be talking about egg tarts. Egg tarts are not just one kind of thing. We're going to learn from the article. There are many different types of egg tart, and they evolved over time. So here's paragraph 1. The egg tart is a delicious pastry-based snack loved the world over. But what is the origin of this much-adored dessert? In modern times, it is considered an Asian invention. However, like many things, it appears that the tart's origin story lies in colonialism.
Egg tarts were actually invented in either Portugal or England many centuries ago. Historical records suggest that they were served at the coronation of King Henry IV of England in 1399. Even further back in history, in the 1200s, Portuguese monks at Jerónimos Monastery in Lisbon are believed to have started making egg tarts using egg yolks after previously encountering various delicious pastries in France. Fast forward to 1820, and the monks at the same monastery began selling egg tarts to a nearby sugar refinery to sustain the monastery. Unfortunately, due to a changing political climate in Portugal, the monastery eventually closed down in 1834 and sold their recipe to the owner of the refinery, which subsequently transformed into a bakery. There, you can still buy egg tarts made using the original recipe.
Regarding how the egg tart came to Asia, it is likely to have been introduced to China when Portuguese sailors first arrived in Guangzhou in 1513. Much later, in the 1840s, Hong Kong became a British colony. Tea restaurants offering Western dishes began popping up after World War II. There, they created modifications of egg tarts, French toast, and even milk tea. These restaurants continue to thrive.
This, in a nutshell, is the history of the egg tart and how it became popular in Asia. The most certain thing is that no matter where you believe egg tarts came from, once you start eating them, you won't be able to stop.
Well,
maybe. I'll have, if I'm in a dim sum restaurant, I'll take one. Sure. I'm not eating out like a whole tray of them.
This was just kind of a journalistic way of ending the piece. You often don't know what to say at the end. You want to make it sound kind of finished. It doesn't have to sound too finished because we still have part 2 to go through tomorrow. But I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration, poetic license here. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. The wonderful world of egg tarts. That means that it's sort of a whole culture of its own. There's a lot of things to know about them that you may not have known before. So the egg tart is a delicious pastry-based snack loved the world over. But what is the origin of this much-adored dessert? Now, I think that opening is okay. Same as Chris, I don't know if I agree that everybody all over the world adores egg tarts. So, again, it's exaggeration. And another issue is that when I do academic writing, In one piece, one of my editors said, please don't use questions in your essays or in your abstracts. A lot of editors don't like you to use questions. In this kind of writing, I think it's fine, but just keep in mind for some kinds of writing, you should avoid questions when you really just want to make a statement.
Yeah, I suppose if you're the author and you start your article out as the egg tart is an okay pastry-based snack, some people like it. You might not be crazy for it. Let's talk about it anyways. That's a terrible opening. So I understand the impulse of the writer to want to build this up.
Yeah. Journalistic writing is written to try and incite interest. It's trying to get your interest. Unlike academic writing, where we try to stay more objective, sticking to the facts.
This is an excellent point, and I think that kind of really shows us why this is probably acceptable here, even while you and I kind of like giggle at it a little bit. And again, it's nothing personally against egg tarts because they're enjoyable. It's just, I mean, you can't start off with like, it's okay.
Exactly. That's right. So a couple things to watch out for. First of all is compound adjectives. We have pastry-based snack. That means a snack that is built up on a pastry. That is the shell or the crust of the pie. It's like a pie. Tart is kind of pie. So we have to put a little hyphen between it. Pastry-based. That means the base of it, the beginning of it is pastry. And pastry is short pastry. That means that there is a lot of fat in it. Either lard or butter or shortening or some other kind of fat to make it flaky. Flaky means that it comes off in flakes rather than being hard and something that you really have to almost break off like a cookie. And the other compound adjective we have is much adored. That means a lot of people really love this dessert, so we put a hyphen between much and adored to make it much adored dessert. And both are stressed. Pastry-based snack, much adored dessert. Okay, next sentence. In modern times, it is considered an Asian invention. Now, first of all, when you say tart, and then the Chinese word for it actually is a foreign loan. It is the syllable ta with a third tone.
That's funny. I appreciate you saying that because I was just thinking, I don't know how to say this in Chinese. It just hit me. I was like, I don't know how I would say this because I'm not a fan of ordering them.
Yeah.
There was never an impulse for me wanting to talk about them.
So now you know how to say it. So egg plus third tone ta, and you've got it. And that's the word for tart.
Thank you, teacher.
It comes from English or some other European language, probably English. So I never thought it was exclusively Asian.
That's funny. I didn't either.
Yeah, it's a very typical Western kind of pastry, little tarts. You know, I grew up with them. My mom did a lot of baking.
My grandmother is from Europe, and I always consider them kind of like like I thought like when I came to Asia and they were popular here, I was like, oh, okay, this must have been like from someone tried them in Europe and brought them here because my grandma made them and
That's right. So a lot of people think it's an Asian invention. I would say that the particular kind of egg tart you find, even the old kind before the Portuguese kind came in, that was particularly Hong Kong. I mean, I saw those all over the place in Hong Kong, and I'm guessing that it came through Hong Kong, became popularized there, and was spread to other countries like Taiwan. That's what I was guessing at the time. However, like many things, it appears that the tart's origin story lies in colonialism, and that's not too surprising. A lot of this foreign stuff came in through colonialism.
Let's just define colonialism really quick, just in case you don't know. So a colony is when you have one country that generally takes over another country militarily for the purpose of setting up like marketplaces. We're going to make stuff and you have to buy it, and we're going to take natural resources from you and we're going to use this to sell to other places. So it's almost like this powerful country forces this smaller, weaker country to buy at a forced higher price. It's a way of boosting the home country's economy.
It's one way of spreading culture, and some of the bigger colonial powers in Europe were England, Spain, Portugal. Can you name any others? Some of them were not quite as big. The Dutch.
The Dutch were really big in Africa.
Yeah. So there are many countries of Europe that were big colonial powers. And as they spread their political power, they also spread their culture.
Okay, let's go to paragraph 2, where we're really going to go knee-deep in the history here. Egg tarts were actually invented in either Portugal or England many centuries ago.
Yeah, a tart is just a pie.
Historical records suggest that they were served at the coronation of King Henry IV of England in 1399.
And that's pretty early.
So a coronation is when the prince becomes a king. Pay attention to King Henry IV. This is King Henry IV. We don't see the in here, but we should say it. Let's continue.
Oh, and we formerly had a Prince Charles, who is now King Charles.
There we go. Even further back in history, in the 1200s, Portuguese monks at Jerónimos Monastery in Lisbon are believed to have started making egg tarts using egg yolks after previously encountering various delicious pastries in France. Even back in history, we're thinking 1200s, these guys in Portugal. A monastery is a place where monks live, so these guys are living alone together. We think they started making egg tarts because they saw them in France.
And that made me think of French pastries, which are mostly from Vienna. They call them viennoiserie. That is their word for pastries because they did not come from France. They came from Vienna.
Yeah, this whole anything with a flaky crust, you're kind of thinking back to those original ideas. That's where the granddaddy of all these pastries come from. Let's continue to our next sentence. Fast forward to 1820, and the monks at the same monastery began selling egg tarts to a nearby sugar refinery to sustain the monastery. Sustain means like to support, but it feels you're just kind of getting by. And when we look at that TAI, that's Latin for like tenacity, to hold. And for strength.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So these two sentences, I think, are a little challenging cognitively. So just sit down with them and then make sure that you understand what's going on before you move on. Our next sentence?
Unfortunately, due to a changing political climate in Portugal, the monastery eventually closed down in 1834 and sold the recipe to the owner of the refinery, which subsequently transformed into a bakery.
My brain is actually turning its wheels, first of all, because of the changing political climate in Portugal. You know that this was probably a struggle between Protestants and Catholics. It happened in many European countries and led to a lot of violence in many countries.
You know, this is so funny is like the way this is portrayed. It's like, oh, those poor guys at the Jerónimos Monastery. But if you look at a picture of this place, you can see there was a lot of money. This is a magnificent structure. It is phenomenal, beautiful place. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is among the most visited places in Lisbon, and it is a cultural gem. So the idea of they're like, oh, these poor monks, they don't have any money, and they have to sell like egg tarts to survive, and then they live in this opulent building. It's there's a contrast here, but I suppose that maybe because they have this beautiful building, it doesn't necessarily mean they're rolling in cash.
Absolutely. There are all kinds of old buildings and castles all over Europe, and nobody will buy them because they're too expensive to maintain.
Let's continue there. You can still buy egg tarts made using the original recipe, and I like that. That sounds cool.
That is. People are really interested in things that are authentic. Next paragraph. Regarding how the egg tart came to Asia, it is likely to have been introduced to China when Portuguese sailors first arrived in Guangzhou in 1513, which backs up my idea that it really became well established in Hong Kong. And they speak Cantonese. A lot of the people in Hong Kong either are from Guangzhou or they have family there. They have close connections.
So when the Portuguese were sailing, they had to go south under Africa. They had to go under the Cape of Good Hope. They had to sail up, sail past India, and then all the way to Guangzhou. And these guys did not really have the freshest food aboard. And so you have a guy that must know how to cook. So they land in Guangzhou. They find eggs. They find sugar. They find
milk.
They make their own dough. And then like, okay, let's whip this up. And there's just what an interesting little series of events that there was someone that got off the boat and like, man, we're going to make some egg tarts, and then shared them with the people that they got these ingredients from. So this kind of went on. There's this little tiny sentence that there's so many little details in the experience of life that we'll never get to know really how it happened. But don't forget, there was an entire ship voyage that needed to take place, and this guy really needed to want to know how to make egg tarts.
So there are two sides to everything. I don't know if anybody would defend colonialism because it was a pretty awful thing. You walk in and take over somebody else's country. But the good side is a lot of information exchange took place.
Yeah.
Much later in the 1840s, Hong Kong became a British colony. Now, that's pretty straightforward. Let's keep going. Tea restaurants offering Western dishes began popping up after World War II. So popping up in Chinese, you love to say, like bamboo shoots after a rain shower. So there are a lot of places that started selling Western food. And Hong Kong, you will see it now because of its colonial background. There is so much foreign food that has been incorporated into Chinese cooking as well. And to keep going, there they created modifications of egg tarts, French toast, and even milk tea. So this foreign food came in, but it was modified to actually be more palatable, be more interesting to Chinese palates, make it so Chinese people would find it better. It's just like Chinese food in the States is really not very much like the Chinese food you find in China or Taiwan.
Localized.
So often they change it to adapt to local tastes.
Do you know what they mean by the localized French toast? I was interested in that, and I was like, I don't recall the last time I had French toast in Asia. I can't even think of a time.
It's really popular now. You find it all around here.
Really?
Yes.
I must not be paying attention.
It's very popular. French toast, yeah, it's more in more Western-style places, especially coffee shops.
Okay, I'll have to pay attention to that. Oh, yeah, I suppose there are places around. Yeah, I'll look for that and try that because I'm a fan of French toast. In fact, if I'm going to make a breakfast at home, like I usually skip breakfast, honestly. I have a very light breakfast. I'll make French toast. That's a one I enjoy. And that's maybe where a little bit of the sugar comes in.
Yeah.
Like I want mine with syrup, right? Not drowning in syrup, but with syrup.
Yeah, okay. But you can also have French toast without it. And sometimes it's served with like ham and cheese or other things or just butter. So it often is sweet, doesn't have to be. Our last sentence of the paragraph, these restaurants continue to thrive. So that means it came in early and it's still going.
All right, let's look at our final and mini paragraph here. This, in a nutshell, is the history of the egg tart and how it became popular in Asia.
It is interesting as a sort of bare bones history. I bet there's a lot of stuff, like you were saying earlier. There's a lot of details that are, we're not finding out about.
We have the nice outline of it. I agree. It's a very nice outline of how it got from Europe to Asia because of the facts of colonialism. We're going to come back to this phrase in a nutshell briefly. But let's finish this paragraph first. The most certain thing is that no matter where you believe egg tarts came from, once you start eating them, you won't be able to stop.
And we've already commented on this. This is very journalistic English. It's exaggerated, and it's kind of a cute ending, sort of cute ending, to make the piece feel more finished.
Do you have a favorite egg tart restaurant in Taipei, or is it just like you're just kind of like, if they're there, maybe you have a bite?
I don't
You
eat
just want
sugar. I don't eat
No
sugar,
sugar
added sugar. If it contains sugar naturally, like fruit, I'm big on fruit. If it contains sugar naturally, that's fine with me, but I try to avoid all the added sugar I can.
Well, my next question is going to fall real flat then. So I was going to ask you, what do you think, like currently in Taiwan, are like the top desserts?
Oh, I think it is falling flat.
Like egg tarts, yeah.
Because whenever I see something that looks like it has added sugar, I just rush by. I don't even look at it. It's just irrelevant to me, and I don't want to. Okay, actually, yesterday, I kind of hung around at this particular restaurant. It's kind of expensive. They have these egg soufflés, and they serve them with ice cream and fruit. And I go, I would like one of those soufflés, not three, no ice cream. The fruit is fine. But everything gets so sweet, so I think no matter how much I'd like to try the soufflés, I'm not going to eat it with all that sugar.
It's almost one of those things where I suppose maybe it's good for young people where they're going to enjoy all that. But it's like if we're in a restaurant together and there's a group of people, all right, I'll take a bite of this. I really don't want to eat 3 of these. I really don't want all of that.
One bite. I will take one bite just to know what it tastes like. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes with age too, where we can manage our ability to crave just large amounts of like things that aren't good for you. So I had my bite. That's good. Good. I tried it.
It's the environment because I was in Taiwan in the 70s and everybody was thin. I mean, literally everybody was thin. And look what's happened since fast food and high sugar items have come into Taiwan.
I will say I haven't been in Taiwan as long as some other foreigners, but I will say I have seen Taiwanese become larger over time. I mean, they're more like Americans at this point.
Which is very sad, and it's happening all over the world. Okay, what else can we say about egg tarts?
Well, I want to explore the phrase in a nutshell because this is a nice phrase that we use a lot. In fact, in a nutshell just means to say something very concisely or with few words and especially very clearly. And this phrase actually has an interesting origin, and it was first used by the Roman writer Pliny the Elder in 77 AD.
Wow.
So this is like the height of like Rome. And so he describes a version of the famous Greek poem called the Iliad being written in so small a script that you could fit it inside of a nutshell.
Is that how it started?
This is how it started. Now, This is especially impressive when you know that the poem, the Iliad, in a modern book form, is around 700 pages long. So if someone were able to condense their script into so tiny a spot that you could fit this entire poem into a nutshell, you must be pretty good. In fact, for a long time in history, in a nutshell just meant to just squeeze everything down compactly, not to mean to especially concisely, but that's what the phrase evolved from into something what it means today, which means to be extremely clear.
Okay, so I think you'll have to make your own judgment, go out and see what kind of egg tarts you like better. I don't really care for sweets. However, given a choice, I will definitely take Portuguese-style egg tarts over the older style, which are much more solid.
Interesting.
And that's it for today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow to hear the rest of the wonderful world of egg tarts. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.